my Tiffany tattooed disabled quilter here, and it is 99 degrees here in my garage while I'm cutting up 40 fat quarters. Why? Because I'm going to make 4 different quilts. We're going to do one quilt at a time, but I'm going to cut all the pieces for all the different quilts first. So you can follow along with me, and I will give you a general idea of what my bangles in my face, what I'm going to be cutting up, and the sizes of all the strips I'm cutting from the 40 different fat quarters. Because we're making 4 quilts from 40 fat quarters, and one quilt, the main one, will be a queen size. I'm not good at math, but I'm going to guesstimate it's going to turn out 95 by 105 by the time I'm done. I will have to add probably a quarter of a yard more fabric for that one of the colors that I'm using. But other than that, we are going to get this done. So bear with me. I'm also going to get this going so I can see if anybody's watching or saying hi, because, well, just in case there's anybody up watching. Plus I got to keep everything out of my way. So this is my large cutting table. It is actually a bar height kitchen table with a marble type top. Yeah, marble top. And I have a big cutting mat on it, big enough, a 36 by 24 mat on here. It's easy for cutting yardage being up here like this. And like always, don't mind the sound in the background, that's just my fans. But this time, instead of having a fan on the opposite side of the room blowing at me, I have one down here at my legs, blowing on my legs, and then one blowing straight at me. And then up here, my swamp cooler, which is like a fan anyway. I keep it filled with water, but it doesn't really do nothing. It's blowing on me also. So I can stay nice and cool. So, anyways, how's everyone's night going? Hoping it's good. So, here's the thing. I did not do measurements, I guesstimated on this, because not all fat quarters come 18 by 21, or 18 by 22. Fat quarters from all different shops vary in sizes, so they're not always exact. So my cuts are not going to be all exact for the project, but we're going to have some fun. So I have 4 fat quarters. I do 4 at a time. I can do 6 at a time normally, but I'm just doing 4 at a time for now and make it easier on myself. And this fan is literally blowing my hair back in my face every time. It's so annoying. Okay, so our first 4 cuts off of the fat quarter, we're cutting in the length of the fat quarter. So when I say length, I mean, here's the selvage at the top. All of our strips from top to bottom are the lengthwise, not the width. No, we're cutting length. Now, all the fabrics that I am using are black, white, and gray. So white on white tones, black with gray, black with white, white with black, white with gray, gray with white and black, a little bit of everything, but it's all these quilts will be black, white, and gray. So don't mind me if I step out of the camera for a second, because I have my fat quarters sitting on the long arm frame for now, out of my way. So, the first 4 cuts are 2.5 inch strips. So I'm going to line this up. I'm using my 6 by 24 inch ruler, lining it up on the 2.5 line. I pre-cut my first line to make it a little bit easier. And then because I'm using it with the length, I use a weight, a little 5-pound weight, and I stick it on the end. And I'm using my Singer rotary cutter. This one's my favorite, by the way, the Singer rotary cutter. Of all rotary cutters, I like the Singer one the best. And I just move my hand up as I go, slide it out of the way, slide my first strip out of the way, cut a second strip. We're cutting 4 2.5-inch strips. My blade is starting to go dull too because I've been doing this for a while today. Well, I've been out here for, I didn't cut all the way. I've been out here for about 2 hours prepping by ironing. I went live earlier, but I deleted it because I was, all I was doing was ironing, and I figured that that wasn't a good enough video, so I just got rid of it and started over after I pressed everything. Remember, 4 2.5-inch strips are our first cuts. We are using 40 fat quarters for our 4 quilt projects. I will do 1 quilt at a time, starting with the hardest. My mat is starting to get a lot of cuts in it too, so I have dings from cutting so much. And it's all it's missing is these little itty bitty pieces. That's 3. Now we're going to cut 1 more. This is for project number 1. I will reveal the projects after we get all the cutting done. How's that sound? Or during the cutting. The sub-cutting of the strips will be the project leftover ideas that are in my head. I'm hoping it's not as blurry as it looks. I have good signal where I put this time. Okay, so we have our 4 2.5-inch strips. Now we are going to cut a 5-inch strip. I'm going to count on the mat. Over 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That way I get a nice, oops, lower. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That way I get a nice accurate cut. Because I really can't see the lines on the board. It's almost time to change my blade. Move that out of the way. And then the last cut is another 2.5-inch strip. So technically, 5 2.5-inch strips and 1 5-inch strip you will get from 1 fat quarter. And typically, I do not save these strips because they're not big enough to sew. So they just go in my pile. Down here I have a bucket that I swipe everything into. And it's the scraps that I will chop up into bazillion pieces and use as fluff for dog beds. So, first we're going to trim off the selvage of the 2.5-inch last strip. Are you kidding me? And that, we are going to just take the selvage and throw it in the trash, or that bin. We're going to take that and put it in pile number 1. So that's 1 quilt idea. Then we are going to subcut our 5-inch strip into 5-inch squares. So, I'm just going to move this down, putting the selvage over the edge. Keep it nice and straight on my line. And I'm using my 12.5 inch square ruler for now for this project. For the square, so I don't have to use the long ruler on this edge. That way I'm not blocking the camera too much. And I can cut left and right-handed. For those of you that can't, I would just be very careful if you're trying to cut both ways. We're going to cut at the 5, 10, the 15, and the 20. Okay? Just using the lines that are on the mat. I usually don't cut sideways like this. I usually come right here to the end, but I don't want to block the whole camera. And I have a hard time seeing the line because of the position I'm in. We should be able to get 4 cuts from this. And then again at the 20. I'm tippy-toeing this one so I can see what I'm doing. And then this last little piece is enough for sewing, so I just have a little crumb pile. And then I'm going to take my 4 stacks of 5-inch squares, stack them up because this is project number 2. And I have a tub specifically for project number 2. So that's going to be all 5-inch squares for project number 2. Now, for project number 1, the biggest project, we're going to move 2 of these strips over, out of the way, trying to keep them nice. And we are going to take the other 2, and I am going to line them up on my 45-degree line on my cutting mat. I'm going to make sure that the selvage is past. I'm going to start with the number 1 right here. I'm going to make sure my selvage touches the line, okay? And I'm going to line that up on the 45-degree line, and I'm going to put the second one right next to it, making sure that the bottom of the selvage is on line 1. Then I'm going to take my ruler again, and I am going to line my 45-degree angle on the bottom strip, line it up on there, and I'm going to cut off this selvage. And technically we will get, in reality, we're going to get 5 quilts, but we're going to get 4 quilts will be actual patterns that aren't patterns, they're just in my head. And then the 5th one is just taking all the scraps and making one thing out of it, because there'll be 20 scraps. So, got this lined up, making my first cut on the 45-degree. So these little scraps here, I just take and I put them in my scrap bin that's below me, that's holding projects in it. So now I'm going to go to my 2.5-inch line, lining my 45-degree angle up on the top, coming to 2.5 inches from that cut edge, and we are going to cut 2.5-inch diamonds. And I'm going to make 2 cuts. So there's 2 45-degree diamonds. And then we're going to do it one more time. 2.5 inches, lining up that 45-degree angle at the top, and the 2.5-inch line down the side, and make my second cut. So these two leftovers, I'm going to stack them up, and here is quilt number 3. So again, quilt number 1 is getting the 45-degree diamonds. Quilt number 2 is 5-inch squares. Quilt number 3 is the leftovers from the diamonds, and then that quilt number 4 will be the strips, that 5th cut that we made the 2.5-inch strip from. That's quilt number 4. Catch on. We'll get this. We'll get the hang of here. Okay, the next 2 fat quarters. 2.5-inch strips in fat quarters. We're going to line them back up again on the 45-degree line. But this number is going to be different. Okay, they're lined up next to each other. So our first 2 were the 2.5-inch 45-degree diamonds. Our second cut, we're going to cut the edge off first at the one right here. Take my little scraps, throw them in my bin. Okay, so this next cut is a 6.5-inch strip. So go to 6.5, lining up that 45-degree line with the 45-degree top right here, and you're going to come to 6.5. 6, 1/4. Line it nice and straight. And I'm going to make a 6.5-inch cut. And then I'm going to leave this down and make a second 6.5-inch cut. I have to look twice. Measure twice, cut once. Definitely a rule. I'm missing my 1/4 inch on that one. We're going to have to check this because I do not think that's off the border. I might be able to fudge these, but I'm not sure. I might have to steal from my other pile. It looks like a 1/4 inch. Let's measure. Yikes. So yeah, I'm not going to be able to use these. So these are going to go in this pile, and I'm going to steal back these from this pile. I'm going to cut a 6.5 in this pile. So I'm stealing this pile back because I have to get another 6.5-inch cut. But it doesn't matter because we'll be able to use it. Like I said, fat quarters are not all the same. So I'm going to line these up on my 45-degree line and just make a new cut at 6.5 inches. Line these up nice and straight. They're already pre-cut. And we're going to swap out by giving this pile hooks. Which doesn't matter because that's pretty much going to be a strip piece of quilt. So I'm going to try this again. 6.5. Up. 6.5. Yay, this time I got it. So these now will just go in that pile down there. That was not supposed to happen. But now we're going to separate this. Oh, and the actual word for this is a parallelogram, I think. I'm pretty sure it's a parallelogram. Anything that's bigger than a 45-degree diamond on a 2.5-inch strip, or the number of your width by your length, if it's equal, then this is a diamond. The number of your width by your length on a long one is a parallelogram. So now we're going to take and make piles. Because there's 4 strips, there should be 4 piles. Each one will go in its matching pile. So each pile will have 2 matching parallelograms, empty this off. I have a bad habit of not closing my blade, but I usually push it to the side. So. Alright, so 2 matching parallelograms per pile, and then we're going to do 2 matching diamonds per pile. And I could probably attempt to put all these measurements. Yeah, I'll put all these measurements in after I make this video. How's that sound? Make it easier. So I'm now going to stack these piles together. And I'm going to take them over to my sewing area where I started my piles. Okay, so let's do this all over again. Okay. Next 4 fat quarters. Make sure they're nice and flat. I line up the selvage. And I get them as close to where the last one are all next to a specific number. As close as I can get, because I don't want to waste too much knowing that I can't get a full strip from the back side, you know? We want to get as much of a use out of our fabric as possible for this particular project. Because, like I said, I didn't want to have to cut those last pieces, but that's just how it came out. So we're going to go back, start back over again, cutting the first 4 cuts will be 2.5-inch strips. Like I said, I cut left and right-handed. And make sure that I got everything, because it might have knots. Nope, need to come over just a smidge. Wait. Thought they were all where they were supposed to be. Not even cutting an 8 off, but I gotta make them all the same. So our first 4 cuts are going to be 2.5-inch strips. See, I just swipe it all off the table into my bucket. Come over to 2.5-inch. Put my weight up here. Flat. Next 2.5. Slide it over. now the next cut is a 5-inch strip. Count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then the last cut is a 2.5-inch strip. Should be able to make it. I forgot my weight on that one, but I got it. Okay. So again, we're just going to cut the selvage off of our, I need to fix that, because I didn't use my weight, I kind of messed it up right there. It's perfect all the way down except for at the beginning. That's my own personal fault. I'm just going to go ahead and cut the selvage off. And again, this is going to go in pile 1 for quilt number 4. This out of the way. Slide my 5-inch strip over. And again, we're just going to cut on the 5, the 10, the 15, and the 20. Make sure it's nice and level. It has not glued down in here either, which is very frustrating. Leaving the lines on the mat only because of the position I'm in, or else I would have turned everything. And I don't want to block the camera too much. That goes in our scrap pile. So this is quilt number 2's pieces. We might actually get more than 2 quilts out of this, but I'm trying to get 2 queen size quilts at the most from most of the fabric. The rest should be throw size. Alright, let's do this again on our angles. So again, we're going to move 2 of these out of the way. I'm hoping my length will be good on this next set. We're going to line it up on the 45 that's on our mat. Make sure the selvage is below us. Just use one line from the mat and make sure your selvage is past that so that you can cut it off. That way you get the most out of your strip. Okay, so those are nice and lined up. Again, we're going to just cut off the first 2 pieces, which are scrap. So the first 2 cuts are 2.5 inch. So just line up your 45-degree line and your 2.5-inch line. And we're making diamonds. Move them out of the way. Cut another 2.5-inch diamond. That I'm just going to save aside just in case the next two cuts don't come out right. Just in case. So again, we're going to lay a little bit out of the way. 45-degree line. Line them parallel with each other, making sure your selvage is just at a line. So you cut right past it. Hoping this works on this, or we're going to have to steal from the other one again. Cut that first section off. So we're going to scrap bin. These are 6.5. The 6.5 on this ruler does not make sense in my head, so I have to check it a bazillion times. So there's one 6.5. Let's see if we can get number 2 out of here. Oh yeah, we should be able to get it. Okay, that will reach just fine on this one. Like I said, the fat quarters are cut differently from all different stores. They are never the same. Just like 10-inch square layer cakes, they're always different. It's amazing to me how it isn't correct, you know? These will go down in the scraps. And there we have parallelograms. So these long pieces that are extra can go right back into the pile. And now we're going to separate them again. So 2 parallelograms. I love this music fabric because I'm covered in music tattoos. And then once you have 2 in each pile, you put 2 diamonds, 45-degree diamonds, in each corresponding fabric pile. So there should be 2 of each. So there would be 2 diamonds and 2 parallelograms per each pile. And I'm getting 8 piles from each stack. So that's 8 blocks that I'll get from these 4 cuts, which is pretty darn good. I'm going to need a lot of blocks for this project. Nicely take them over to my area. Okay, so I'm going to take you over to go over all this one more time, except I'm going to take the camera with me and show you. Okay, so first I'll just stay right here for this pile. Our 5-inch squares, project number 2, is going in one separate tub. So far, there's a lot of pieces in it. There'll be lots more. Quilt number 3 is all the excess. And now this pile looks really big because my solids are in here, which I'll tell you about in a second. So here's my stack of those. I have white, black, and a light gray. These were yardage that I cut into 2.5-inch strips. I cut a 1/4 yard from each color so that I can get, no, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 2.5-inch strips. Yeah, 6 2.5-inch strips from all 3 colors is what I cut. And I cut diamonds off of these, the 2.5-inch regular 45-degree angle diamonds. And I cut 2 off of each of these. And saved the long pieces so that in case I need more 2.5-inch cuts, because I didn't measure how many pieces I'm going to need because I'm doing diamonds, so those numbers I won't be able to give you just yet. But quilt number 3 will be all these leftover strips, except for what I have to steal from them, you know. So for now, I just move all that out of the way. So that's quilt number 3. I'm going to take you over as best as I can. So this pile of strips right here are the 2.5-inch strips that I cut the selvage off of. So this pile is quilt number 4. Okay? And then we're going to come over here. Here's those diamonds I was telling you about. There's white, gray, and black. And don't mind all my dust because this is a dirty garage. Not dirty, dirty. And then here's all our diamonds and parallelograms stacked up in piles so far. And I'm just going to keep making piles and stacking them like this. So what I will be doing, let's see if I can show you real quick. We're going to take one pile. So if I want to use gray, we will have 1. I'm just going to lay it out to show you. Obviously the 1/4 inches are not off of this yet, so I'm just going to lay them on here as if the 1/4 inches were already taken from them. Oh, I was worried there. Alright. I just laid it out wrong. That's my own fault. Alright. That's the layout of our diamonds. So we will be sewing this to this to this. And I'll show you how to do that when we get all this stuff cut. This is the cutting video for now. Then this to this, and this to this. And with diamonds, it's a little bit different. So do you see what I'm going with here? So each one of these will get a corresponding black, gray, or white, depending on the color that's in it, for the center. And then it'll get surrounded. So turn around, and there's the big stack of fat quarters. Lots and lots here. Sorry, the lighting is horrible right now. Here's all of my, tons of them, different ones. They're all different. Well, not all different. There's a lot of the same, but in different color ways. Black, white, or gray is all these colors. I love paisleys and flowers, and I love music notes. So that's that. So I'll put the numbers up
to do this. So this will be quilt number 1. We're trying to make this in total. We'll have to do this on the design wall once I sew all the diamonds together. I'll give you all the measurements for this. So this is quilt number 1, which should come out to 95 by 105, hopefully. Queen size or king size, technically. It could lay on a king. Then, this would be quilt number 4, these pieces. That is quilt number 2, those pieces right there. And this tub is quilt number 2. Or no, that was 3, 4, and 2. Yeah, so let me put you back. And we'll cut one more, and then, oh, I forgot. The quilt that I was working on, those broken dishes blocks that were made from, oh my goodness, I'm having a brain fart right now. They were made from hourglasses, from scraps. I finished it. Would you like to see? I will show you. It is, I'm going to turn another light on just for some more background light to see how well it will come out. Alright guys, come with me one more time. Voila! There it is. Okay, so I decided to put 2-inch sashing to go with the little 2-inch squares, so I made them into cornerstones. 2-inch sashing, the block turned out 9. And then they still, instead of putting it all together, because I was going to put it all together, instead they still come out opposite colors. Blue is always to the top corner, which made it come out the bottom green, blue, blue, green. So I have an idea to quilt it, and then I put blue across the top, and I used all but 3 little 2-inch squares. So I made little 4 patches for the corners. Then there's blue on the bottom, blue on the top, and green on the sides of the gingham, and then that sashing is made of red. So let me come up with it up close. Some of my blocks are messed up, and I did this in really high heat. So you can see my seam did not match right there, but I am totally not worried. My blocks did not lose their points, which was a plus on that part at least. It mostly lines up. Once it's quilted, I don't think it'll look that bad. But some of them are matched up, and don't mind, it's not actually wavy, it's just pinned up on a sheet in my garage for now, because I like to look at them to think of how I'm going to quilt it. So, but yeah, there it is. It came out 51 by 51 or 52 by 52. It's completely square. So that's it. All right, let's cut some more pieces real quick. So we're going to cut 4 more fat quarters real fast. So I'm going to take 4 different colors. I'm going to line them up nicely on their selvage. I pressed them all first to make sure that this process didn't take as long, you know? I'm hoping it'll look okay. These quilts. Well, actually, I'm not hoping. I know they will look okay, because black, white, and gray always goes good together. Alright. So again, I'm just going to line it up on the line. And try not to waste. Make sure all cuts get cut exactly the same. So I'll tell you again, the cuts are 2.5, but 4 2.5s to start, because you want to make sure you have enough. So 2.5, 2.5, 2.5, 2.5-inch strips in the long wise of the fat quarter. cut these 2.5-inch strips first. So I'm going to make my straight line to start with. Come over 2.5. Earlier I accidentally cut a 2 1/4 and didn't even realize I did that. But it wasn't from my fat quarters, it was from my solids, so it was an accident. But that can just go for another project or binding or something. Slide it just a smidge. Cut another 2.5. We're cutting 4 2.5-inch strips first, because this is how we're making sure we have enough. I started with 40 fat quarters, as a reminder. And that 40 fat quarters, I'm including the yardage in for the 6 cuts at 2.5 inches. Because those were technically 3 more fat quarters. There was 37 of the colors that I'm using, and then 3 solids, which made 40. So slide that over. Now we're going to slide this to a line because it's kind of off just a little. We're going to cut a 5-inch strip. Our next cut is 5 inches, so come over 5. And then our last cut is 2.5. Hoping to be able to have this exact. And look at that. It's definitely going to get all the pieces. And again, these aren't worth saving, so I just stick them all in my bucket, which is filling for dog beds that get donated to the pound. So first cut is cutting off the selvage. And I am just going to eyeball this. And this is going to go in quilt number 4's pile. Then the 5-inch strips we're going to bring over just a smidge. Making sure we get the selvage cut off. And we're going to cut at the 5, the 10, the 15, and the 20. Totally need water. Dying of thirst.
go up in our little scrap pile. 5. So here's our 5-inch squares in my little 5-inch square tub. I call these my little project tubs, and my whole quilting area is full of project tubs and or storage tubs for all sorts of stuff. Okay, so now we're going to move 2 of these out of the way. These are for the 6.5-inch cuts. We're going to start with our first 2, lining it up on the 45-degree line, making sure your selvage is at a number. Right at that corner. These are going to be our 2.5-inch. Scraps. Lining up the 45-degree angle and a 2.5-inch line. Making 2 cuts. Temporarily sliding these out of the way, just in case we have to use them. Give me a second. Then we take our next 2 that we set aside, doing the same thing again. Lining it up on the 45, making sure your selvages are all past one of the numbers that you're choosing. Mine just so happen to be right. So cut off that first amount. Strap. And these are 6.5. So line up that 45-degree line and your 6.5-inch line. And let's make sure I have another 6.5 available. Oh good. Yay! Some of these I'll be able to, some I probably won't. Guess it just depends. Right in the corner. Well, that one's just barely gonna make it. And these are now scrap pile. And these I can stack for quilt number 2. And these go in quilt number 1. 2 of each. So 2 parallelograms. 2 diamonds with the same fabric. Okay. Stack all these up nicely. Let's take them over to my area. And then I will tell you all the sizes one more time before I turn this off for the night. Okay, so again, 40 fat quarters, 3 of them being solid, so 37 colored fat quarters and 3 solids. Or you can just do all color, honestly, if you wanted. Choose 3 to be your central pieces if you want. Cutting them on the length, so you will get 4 2.5-inch strips, a 5-inch strip, and then one last 2.5-inch strip. But if you don't have enough, if your fat quarter was cut wrong, you can turn that into 2 1/4 and use those later in a scrap pile to make binding, a scrappy binding, or anything you want with it if you're just going to scraps. So we're making 4 different projects: the diamond quilt, the 5-inch square quilt, which will be 4.5-inch finished squares, the extra piece quilt, which is going to be like a strippy diamond quilt, but elongated, and then the last, number 4, is going to be, what is it called? Like jelly roll race, kind of, but my way. I'm going to cut them and cut them and cut them and sew them and cut them and sew them and cut them. So it'll be what I make it when the time comes, because we're going to start with the diamond quilt. So that's how we're cutting up these fat quarters for our project. And thank you for watching. Like and say if you want to see more. We're going to start with the diamond quilt. I'm going to get to cutting these so I don't bore you all. I have a lot more cuts to make. So I'm going to get that done, and that way tomorrow or the next day, depending on weather, how hot it is in my garage, because it's 98. It went down 1 degree this whole time. In 1 hour, 1 degree. So I'm going to get the rest of these cut. Like and subscribe if you would like to see more. I'm Tiffany Tattooed Disabled Quilter. My legs are killing me, but I am going to get this done. And I'm sweating. So thank you for watching, and can't wait to get started on this projects, plural, that I'm doing. 4 quilts from 40 fat quarters. 4 quilts. And then the rest will be scrappy. We can make a little scrap thing to finish. But we're going to do them all in a row. So we're going to do quilt 1 with the diamonds, quilt 2 with the 5-inch squares, quilt 3 with the strips, and quilt 4 with the jelly roll racy type thing. So, yeah. Thank you for watching. Have a good night. Bye.